What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, May 9th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 16:07 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we currently have a U.S. presidential Doomsday plane that took off from Stratcom and flew to Cheyenne Mountain. Now, Cheyenne Mountain is a doomsday bunker. It's a giant underground facility built underneath a mountain outside of Colorado Springs. And these presidential doomsday planes are for the President of the United States. In the event of a nuclear war or some type of a cataclysmic event, the president would go on one of these planes and command the entire U.S. military, including the U.S. nuclear forces, from one of these planes. And so this plane took off from the Stratcom home base of Offutt Air Base in Omaha, Nebraska, and it flew over northern Missouri with its transponder off. So it took off from Stratcom and went east to Illinois, turned around, and then went west over northern Missouri and had its transponder off over northern Missouri. Look at that, guys. Obviously, it was trying to hide its movements, and then it went to Colorado Springs. Wow. And Cheyenne Mountain is right outside of Colorado Springs. That's where NORAD is based out of. NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense. That's where the U.S. military tracks all incoming missiles and any kind of alien spaceships. If there were an alien invasion, they could track it from NORAD. But this is absolutely insane, guys. Okay, a U.S. presidential doomsday plane flying to a doomsday bunker. Now, in addition to this, we have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert this afternoon. We've had so far 4 nuclear war command and control planes up in the air today over the Midwest, and there's one out in the Gulf of Mexico. We also have this B-1 strategic bomber that's been airborne west of Abilene, Texas for hours now, doing loops here in western Texas. Now, in Abilene, you have Dyess Air Force Base, which is the home base for all of our strategic and nuclear bombers. It's one of the main bomber bases besides Ellsworth and Barksdale and Minot. It's one of the main bomber bases. So this is extremely concerning. 4 nuclear war command and control planes in the air. A lot of them were looping in various parts of the Midwest here, the Southern Plains. You have this one that was looping here over Kansas, and then there was one looping in the Ozarks, one going out to the Gulf of Mexico, one looping over Oklahoma. And when they fly in those loops, that's when they're communicating with our nuclear-armed submarines. These are the Boeing E-6B Mercury Tacoma planes, and these planes are responsible for communicating with our submerged nuclear-armed submarines, the Ohio-class subs. And when they loop in the air, that means they deploy a trailing wire antenna. And when they fly in the loop, the antenna goes vertical, and then they can communicate with submerged submarines. Okay, so this is very, very concerning, guys. We have a doomsday plane going from Stratcom to Colorado Springs, where Cheyenne Mountain is located. We have several Boeing E-6 Mercuries airborne this afternoon. We have a B-1 looping for hours here west of Abilene. Now, in addition to all of that, we had a massive amount of NATO activity over Poland last night. And what you're looking at here is the flight path of yet another Russian military cargo plane going to Kaliningrad. This is probably the 4th or 5th Russian military cargo plane to fly to Kaliningrad this week so far. Okay, this is right now, guys. As of 1612, Eastern Time. Okay, this is an Ilyushin 76MD-90A. So Russia is moving massive amounts of military equipment into Kaliningrad. And why are they doing that? Because they're going to attack the Baltics soon. I think they're going to attack the Baltics this spring and this summer. And this update was sponsored by Patriot Supply. Guys, Patriot Supply is doing a discount on their 1-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. This is a 1-month freeze-dried food supply. It has a 25-year shelf life. Normal price is $237. They've dropped it down to $177. So that's a savings of $60. And it's all packed within 2 rugged, water-resistant buckets. Free shipping is included. $177 for 1 month of food. Where are you going to find a deal like that? They also have a general store, and they're always running discounts in their general store on various prepping and survival items. They have everything from MREs, potassium iodide, to survival seeds. And to get to their general store, you got to click on the Patriot Supply logo at the top of the page when you get to preparewithnyprepper.com. And you'll see when you get there, they have everything you can imagine. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $60 off the Patriot Supply 1-month emergency food supply. That's $180 for 1 month of food, free shipping included. The link is in the description below this video. And also check out their general store. They have everything you can imagine prepping and survival related, and they're always running various discounts there. And they're positioning all the equipment in advance for that. And now Russia and Belarus are doing tactical nuclear weapons drills. This is very serious, guys. Okay, Poland has officially applied to the U.S. to be part of NATO's nuclear strike mission, which would basically mean that the U.S. would station 20 to 30 B-61 nuclear gravity bombs in Poland. And Poland would then be authorized to deliver these nuclear gravity bombs to targets in Russia and in Belarus, and potentially also Iran and the Middle East with Polish F-16s and soon F-35s. So this is very serious, guys. Lots of tension here. And I do believe Russia and Belarus are going to attack the Baltics, potentially also Poland, okay, which would be suicidal, especially if they go after Poland, because Poland not only has a very strong military of their own, but they also have like dozens of NATO bases in Poland, especially American bases, American combat brigades. So that would just be stupid. But I don't think they're going to actually go for Poland, because Russia and Belarus know that Poland is armed to the teeth, and they're arming themselves to the teeth. And there's also all those American bases and thousands of American troops. And I think there's even F-22s still in Poland that the U.S. moved to Poland like a year and a half ago. They moved half a dozen F-22s to western Poland, to the Powice Air Base near Poznań, Poland. I think they're still there as far as I know. And there were also some F-35s that I think the Netherlands moved to Poland as well. So there's a lot of assets in Poland. I don't think Russia would attack Poland directly. If they do, they would just try to go after the very northeastern part of Poland here near Wigry and Suwałki. But Poland is preparing for that. The Polish president recently supervised joint maneuvers with Lithuania and the U.S. and I believe it was Portugal. They did drills here with tanks and infantry in the Suwałki Gap, and the Polish president personally supervised the drills. So things are really escalating, guys. But Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have very small militaries, and there's a very small NATO presence there. NATO does not have a lot of forces in the Baltics, okay? So, what Russia would try to do with Belarus is form a land corridor from Kaliningrad to Belarus, similar to how they did in Ukraine, the land bridge they made to Crimea. I think they're going to do the same thing to Kaliningrad to connect Belarus to Kaliningrad. And then once they have that land corridor, then the Baltics are completely isolated from the rest of NATO by land. The only way that NATO could then resupply the Baltics is by the Baltic Sea, which is slower, okay, to move equipment over the sea. And so then the Baltics would be very vulnerable. And there's very small militaries in these countries. Some of these countries only have 50,000 troops, and they don't have any fighter jets of their own. I don't believe they have even any air defenses, really. I think Lithuania may have just received a Patriot battery, but very small militaries. And listen, Russia doesn't have to occupy the entire Baltics. Even if Russia and Belarus go in 10 or 20 miles and just occupy a small portion of the Baltics, that's enough to cause a big distraction for NATO. NATO's going to start panicking. The world is going to panic. And in the midst of that panic, Russia is going to send a massive force into eastern Ukraine and collapse the Ukrainian front lines and take the entire eastern half of Ukraine all the way to the Dnieper River. I think that what Russia is going to do is they're going to enter in through Sumy in northern Ukraine, just west of Kharkiv, and they're going to go straight south to Poltava to try to reach the Dnieper River that way. And then simultaneously, they're going to try to break through near Zaporizhia and go north. And then near Donetsk, they're going to try to break through where they're already breaking through in Donetsk, and they're going to go west. So you're going to have these three axes of advance, and they're all going to meet somewhere near Dnipropetrovsk. And what that's going to do is cut off Kharkiv from the rest of Ukraine and encircle all of the Ukrainian troops in eastern Ukraine. This could happen, guys. Okay, the Ukrainian troops are outnumbered, outgunned. They don't have equipment. They don't have ammunition because NATO was dragging their feet because Biden didn't have the balls to give Ukraine everything they needed in the beginning of the war. All the equipment that Ukraine is getting now and in the last few months and the last year or so, Ukraine should have gotten that the first year, okay? When Ukraine was making all those big counterattacks in Kharkiv and Kupiansk and Kherson, when the Russians were literally running for their lives, that was the time for NATO to give Ukraine all the equipment that they've gotten in the last year. Okay, so the equipment that they needed came too late. It came a year later after Russia was able to fortify their front lines and dig in. And so this is a huge screw up by NATO. I don't know if they did it because of sheer incompetence or fear of Putin, fear of provoking Putin, or because they purposely want to drag the war out, which is what NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg literally said himself many times, that this war is going to drag on for years. Well, you know, any logical military planner does not want a war to drag out for years. You want to get your mission done as quickly as possible. So I wonder if there's some kind of agenda going on behind the scenes, if they want to weaken Russia at the expense of Ukrainian blood and Ukrainian young men. I don't know, guys. Okay, that's just speculation. But we do have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert today. We have several E-6B Mercuries and a Doomsday plane going from Stratcom to Cheyenne Mountain. We also have this Russian military cargo plane going to Kaliningrad right now. Last night, we had another Russian military cargo plane go to Kaliningrad. So that's literally two just in the last 12 to 18 hours, okay? In addition to that, at the same time, you can see all of this NATO activity here in Poland. You have this French MRTT plane that was looping over southern Poland for hours, okay? And these planes are usually aerial refuelers, but they could be reconnaissance planes. And this thing was just looping for hours and hours last night, okay? In addition to that, you had a Polish border guard plane that flew along the border with Belarus and then along the border with Russia. Then you also had a Polish border guard plane patrolling Poland's Baltic coastline. All this happening at the same time, guys. And then yesterday, we had another Russian military cargo plane go to Kaliningrad. And then there was this P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter that was looping like hundreds of times off the coast of Kaliningrad. This was yesterday. And then also yesterday, another Russian military plane going to Kaliningrad. This was the 223rd Flight Unit. So this was actually a VIP plane. So something is brewing in Kaliningrad. Yesterday, we also had multiple C-17 Globemasters fly to Estonia. Okay, very, very concerning. In the middle of the night, 3 C-17s going up to Estonia. Okay, probably moving weapons and equipment to Estonia because Estonia is about to get attacked. And then just a few days ago, we had the USS Nebraska, a U.S. Ohio class submarine, take off from its port in Bangor Kitsap, which is where the U.S. has most of their nuclear-armed submarines in Washington State in the Puget Sound, and it went out into the Pacific. And what's interesting about this is it was escorted by A-10 Warthogs. Okay, you don't escort an Ohio-class sub on routine missions with A-10 Warthogs. Okay, this means that we are in a state of war, basically, if we're escorting Ohio-class subs in our own territorial waters with A-10 Warthogs, guys. That is insane, okay? This is literally in Washington State in the Puget Sound when it was going out into the Pacific close to Vancouver, okay, in the strait over there. This is insane, guys. Our military is on high alert, okay? They're deploying an extra Ohio-class sub because of tensions in Europe and the upcoming massive Russian attack on the Baltics and the massive offensive in Ukraine and also the Israeli operation in Rafah. So we have a lot of things happening at the same time. Okay, we have Europe, we have the Baltics, we have Ukraine, we have the Middle East, the situation with Rafah. Israel's going to go into Rafah very soon, which could potentially escalate the whole situation in the Middle East. Hezbollah could step up their attacks on Israel, which would force Israel to go to war with Hezbollah. Then Iran could get involved. Iranian proxies could start attacking our bases again. We could have domestic terror attacks here in the U.S. We've already seen all these pro-Hamas riots across the country that are definitely sponsored by outside forces, okay? They're probably sponsored by George Soros and Iran. But this is very, very serious, guys. And we have those tactical nuclear drills going on with Russia and Belarus. This was posted by the Belarusian Ministry of Defense on Monday, showing the Belarusian army loading an Iskander missile with a nuclear warhead onto an Iskander missile launcher. Okay, so these are like a modern day Scud missile. They have a short range. I think 300 miles is the max range, just enough so they can hit all of Poland and all of the Baltics. And this missile right here has a nuclear warhead. Okay, this is the same thing that Russia did before they invaded Ukraine. You remember they piled up all the forces on the border of Ukraine and they said, oh, it's just an exercise. We can do whatever we want. We can move our troops around in our own border. It's just an exercise. We're not going to invade. You remember Sergei Lavrov saying that it was Western hysteria, that when we were saying that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine, he said, oh, that's Western hysteria. We're just doing an exercise. Well, what are they doing now? They're doing an exercise with tactical nuclear weapons, okay? You don't do that for no reason, guys, okay? It's because things are about to escalate, and Russia is getting ready to use these missiles if they have to. Okay, things are about to escalate with the Baltics. Russia is going to invade the Baltics. Things are about to escalate in Ukraine. Russia is going to launch the new offensive there. And all the talk of NATO forces being in Ukraine is very concerning to Vladimir Putin, obviously. Okay, with French forces apparently already in Odessa, and multiple NATO countries saying that they would be willing to send their forces to Ukraine. Here we have some more NATO activity in the Baltics earlier this morning and late last night. You have this Spanish reconnaissance plane that was looping along the border of Lithuania and Belarus. This is extremely unusual, and this thing was there for hours, okay, right near Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, right near where Belarus has moved an entire mechanized brigade to the border of Lithuania. Okay, just like about a month or two ago, Belarus moved several mechanized brigades to the border of Lithuania. And now, guess what? Spain is sending this reconnaissance plane to patrol the border here. Okay, no surprise. And then you also have this U.S. Army Sikorsky Black Hawk that flew to Lithuania from Poland. There was also another Chinook here in Latvia. You had the Estonian border guard patrolling their border here with the Baltic Sea. There was also a Polish VIP plane that flew from Warsaw, the capital of Poland, to Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. Okay, so a lot of things going on, a lot of VIPs going to the Baltics, a lot of military equipment going to the Baltics, the C-17s, clearly a preparation for war. Okay, look at this Spanish recon plane just looping here on the border of Belarus and Lithuania. Absolutely insane. And then here you can see the Estonian border guard plane patrolling the Estonian shoreline with the Baltic Sea. And here we have a U.S. Marine Corps plane that flew to northeastern Poland. This is pretty rare. This was a Beech 12 Huron, went from Stuttgart to Olsztyn. There is a large NATO base here in northeast Poland where this Marine Corps plane went to, probably some Marine Corps VIPs. So this is a bad sign, okay? If they're moving Marine Corps generals and commanders to the theater, that's a bad sign. And here's the U.S. Army Black Hawk that flew from northeast Poland, the base in Szczytno Szymanę Airport, to Kaunas. And in Kaunas, there's a huge NATO brigade. That's the headquarters of the NATO forces in Lithuania, is in Kaunas. Okay, so not a good sign. And NATO soldiers are already in Ukraine helping Kiev, but the U.S.-led bloc does not want to get directly involved in the conflict with Russia, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said today. And NATO soldiers are already in Ukraine helping Kiev, but the U.S.-led bloc does not want to get directly involved in the conflict with Russia, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has said. Tusk made the comments on Wednesday answering a question from a 10-year-old girl who was among the accredited reporters at the Polish parliament and asked why the UN or NATO had not intervened in Ukraine yet. NATO today is helping as much as it can. Without NATO's help, Ukraine would not have been able to defend itself for so long, Tusk replied, according to a translation of his remarks. Well, and there are some troops there, I mean soldiers. There are some soldiers there, observers, engineers. They're helping them out, he added. Wow. So another Polish government official confirming that there are NATO troops in Ukraine. We had the Polish foreign minister say the same thing. And Russia did not invite officials or envoys representing unfriendly states to watch the Victory Day parade today, although this policy did not apply to veteran organizations, according to Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. President Vladimir Putin therefore welcomed several leaders from former Soviet republics, as well as the presidents of Cuba, Guinea, and Laos. Other guests included ambassadors and military attaches from friendly countries. More than 9,000 troops, including veterans of the Ukraine conflict, took part in the Victory Day parade today, followed by more than 70 armored vehicles, including an iconic T-34, the Red Army warhorse of World War II, as well as S-400 air defense systems and Yars intercontinental ballistic missiles. The parade was capped by a flyby featuring two groups of warplanes. So here we have a picture coming from the Victory Day parade in Russia that happened earlier today. Okay, you can see that huge hammer and sickle in the background. Guys, Russia is still the Soviet Union. Okay, I know it's called the Russian Federation now, and their economy is like more capitalistic, but they still consider themselves to be the USSR. At least Putin does, and the government does. Okay, look at the hammer and sickle in the background. This is insane, guys. Okay, that would be like us flying a Confederate flag on a 4th of July parade, okay, or Memorial Day or something like that. It's just not something that, we do really, unless it's like a Civil War parade, okay. Here's one of Russia's nuclear missiles, the RS-24 Yars. This is one of their newer mobile ICBMs. So very serious situation in Eastern Europe. We have to be prepared for escalation. I want to read to you what Putin said during the Victory Day parade. He said, "No state or alliance has a claim to exceptionalism. The West is pursuing an essentially colonial policy based on hypocrisy and lies," the Russian president said at this year's Victory Day parade. Russia firmly opposes the West's colonial policies aimed at elevating a few nations by restraining the development of other sovereign states. According to Putin, Western nations would like to forget the lessons of World War II. We see how they are trying to distort the truth about World War II. It interferes with those who are accustomed to building their essentially colonial policy on hypocrisy and lies. They demolish memorials to true fighters against Nazism and place traitors and Nazi collaborators on pedestals, the president said. He called this revanchism policy a mockery of history based on the desire to justify current followers of the Nazis. These actions are part of the general policy of Western elites of inciting more and more regional conflicts, interethnic and interreligious hostility, and restraining the development of sovereign independent states, Putin stated, noting that no country or military bloc has a right to do so, which World War II proved. So very interesting statements there. We had a massive amount of reconnaissance over the Korean Peninsula and in the Yellow Sea last night. This is absolutely insane, guys. At one point, there were half a dozen reconnaissance planes in South Korea flying along the border with North Korea, and at the same time, we had a combat scent plane patrolling the Yellow Sea along the Chinese coastline, and the combat scent planes are high-priority reconnaissance planes that send intelligence directly to the president and our top generals. And so if one of these is up in the air, it means something serious is going down, or the president and the Joint Chiefs need more information about something very important. So they deploy one of these planes. Now there's only two of these planes in the entire U.S. Air Force inventory, and they specifically focus on collecting radar signal information and radio signal information so they can detect the locations of missile complexes, radar sites, and any kind of radio signals, okay? So absolutely insane. Look at this, guys. Here we have a whole bunch of reconnaissance planes over South Korea. And then at one point, we even had a U.S. Army Black Hawk that straddled the border of North and South Korea and flew out into the Yellow Sea close to North Korea, guys. Okay, North Korea is right here. And this thing was just, I don't know, a few dozen miles off the coast of North Korea. So absolutely insane. We also had a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon subhunter plane patrolling the coast of Israel earlier this afternoon. And Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia filed a motion to vacate the chair of the U.S. House of Representatives, accusing Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana of betraying his party, according to the text of the resolution made public by fellow Republican Thomas Macy of Kentucky. Johnson has not lived up to a single one of the 7 tenets he announced when he was elected Speaker last October. Johnson's tenure is defined by one self-serving characteristic. When given a choice between advancing Republican priorities or allying with Democrats to preserve his own personal power, Johnson regularly chooses to ally himself with Democrats, Greene said. The House leadership responded to Greene's proposal with a motion to dismiss the resolution. The final vote was 359 in favor to dismiss, with only 43 opposed. So, massive amount of U.S. House members dismissing this crazy resolution by Marjorie Taylor Greene. And RFK Jr., the presidential candidate, once thought he had a brain tumor, but the dark spot on scans turned out to be a dead parasitic worm, the New York Times has reported, citing legal documents. In 2010, RFK Jr. was experiencing brain fog and memory loss so severe he turned to top neurologists for advice about a possible tumor, according to the Times. One New York doctor gave him a different opinion, however, a dead parasite. The anomaly seen on the scans was caused by a worm that got into my brain and ate a portion of it and then died, Kennedy said in a 2012 deposition. According to the Times article, the cyst containing the dead worm remained in Kennedy's brain and did not require treatment, nor did he have any after effects from it. He said he did not know what type of parasite it may have been or how he contracted it, though he suspected it was on a trip to South Asia. Wow, guys. So RFK Jr. literally has a dead worm in his brain. That could explain a lot of his crazy positions. You know, maybe his cognitive function has deteriorated and he's just not thinking clearly anymore. Want to just show you guys what's going on over the U.S. right now. We currently have freeze and frost warnings over northern Wisconsin. We also have a massive area of tornado watches posted for southern Georgia and northern Florida. We have this line of strong storms passing over the Georgia-Florida border right now. We also have a line of storms passing over central and eastern Texas right now. There are tornado watches posted in central and eastern Texas, including flood warnings. And we also have some flood warnings posted for New Jersey and coastal sections of New York, including Long Island and New York City. We have a strong geomagnetic storm that's going to be hitting us tomorrow night into Saturday, and there's a chance of auroras being seen as far south as Alabama, guys. A G4 class geomagnetic storm. That is the second strongest geomagnetic storm there is in the scale. The scale goes up to G5. G5 would basically be like a Carrington event. So we're just below Carrington event. That's how strong this geomagnetic storm is going to be. We've had interference on high frequency radio communications the last 48 hours. So if you have a clear sky and you live in the United States, look to the north tomorrow night after sunset and into Saturday morning, and you might see an aurora. I think in my area, we're supposed to have rain and clouds. Unfortunately, I just have the worst luck. Anytime these auroras come down, it's always cloudy or rainy. Typical Pennsylvania weather. And I want to just update you guys on the situation with the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So we're currently transitioning into a La Nina, which is going to have some huge climate effects over the next year or so. What you're looking at here are the sea surface temperature anomalies. And what you'll notice here is in the equatorial Pacific, you can see this blue line starting to form along the equator. This is the beginnings of a La Nina. In a La Nina, the sea surface temperatures cool in the equatorial Pacific due to upwelling that's caused by trade winds. So you have cool ocean water that rises up to the surface, and that causes a cooling effect on the entire globe. So we could see a massive winter this year in the northern hemisphere. We could see massive blizzards. We could see high latitude blocking in Greenland, blocking high pressure systems that would force Arctic air south, the polar vortexes. Okay. In addition to that, we're going to have a very active Atlantic hurricane season. Want to just read to you guys the latest update here from the NOAA, and they have an 85% chance that we're going to transition to ENSO neutral conditions from April through June, and then the odds of a La Nina developing by June through August is 60%. And then from September through November, they have like a 80% chance of a La Nina. Okay, so get prepared, guys. We're going to have a massive winter this year, and we're also going to have a very active hurricane season. Okay, so get your winter preps in order now. Okay, when it's off season and winter prep items are lower price, like wood stoves, winter clothing, snow tires, tire chains, things like that. Okay, get it all now and test it out, set it up so when these massive blizzards come, you're not going to be caught with your pants down. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon down below so you get notified when I post these updates. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel. I post all of my YouTube updates to Telegram. So if you follow my Telegram, you'll never miss an update and you won't have to search for my updates. It's all on my Telegram channel, and I also post certain footage and certain information on Telegram that I cannot share here on YouTube. So I'm going to leave a link to my Telegram in the comments down below. So until later on tonight, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.